Good morning. Chapter 11, Lesson 2 is on page 489. We're going to be talking about radical expressions. Just as kind of a refresher, I like to think of a radical as the same thing as something raised to the 1/2 power. As long as I think of a radical as something raised to the 1/2 power, it makes life much easier for me. So number 23, let's start. And I think maybe what we want to do is we want to just simplify. So this is minus 4d times minus 4d, and we'll get faster and faster as we practice. And if we do this, excuse me, we end up with 16d squared minus 4 times minus 4 is a positive 16, and we can break that up into 16 and d squared. Well, we know the square root of 16 turns out to be 4, and we know that the square root of d squared turns out to be either d or minus d. The square root of d squared is equal to either d or minus d, because minus d times minus d gives me the same thing. Remember, two negatives make me a positive. So the convention for d squared, or for any variable squared, we can write it as d or minus d, or we can just say the absolute value of d. So we're going to put that here for problem number 23. The answer for number 23 turns out to be 4 times the absolute value of d, or 4 times d, or 4 times a negative d. The absolute value of d is the same thing. Number 43 says we have two parts to it. Determine the values for, let me check the book, the variables that will make each expression a real number. And let me finish my parentheses. And we remember we've talked about in class, for Algebra 1, there is no way that we can take the square root of a negative number. So what that means to us is, using that zero product property we learned a long time ago, that either m has to be 0 or m plus 3 has to be 0. In order for these things to be real numbers, we can either have m is 0 or m plus 3 is equal to 0. So this means then that m is going to be something larger than 0. And let's solve for m here. M turns out to be negative 3. And m turns out to be something larger than negative 3. So we can have two possible solutions. Something like m is negative 3 or larger, or m has to be larger or equal to 0. For part B, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to break it up into x squared and x minus 3. Well, in order for this to be true, we're going to have to say that either x is equal to 0 or x minus 3 is equal to 0, which means x has to be greater than or equal to 3 again, or x has to be equal to 0. Greater than or equal to 0. Sorry. So the same answers work for both A and for B. That's it for today. We'll see you all tomorrow.